fabulous festival of fly balls. What a show they put on last night, a mile high. We'll start there. Then, a legend who knows something about switching sides late in his career has a strong opinion about what is about to happen. You don't want to miss it. And why this superstar needs to go back to the past if his team is going to have the future everybody wants. All that and more as we get up with you starting right now on a Wednesday from New York. Delighted you were there and delighted this crew has chosen to get up and talk football with us today as we have a lot to talk about. Jeff Darlington is here. Louis Riddick is here. And look who makes his triumphant return. Sam Acho, affectionately known as Sacho. We'll get to that crew in just a moment. But first, did you hear the sound of baseballs flying through the mountain air last night a mile high? We take you to the home run derby last night, and boy, it was on display. The defending champion, Pete Alonso, setting a tone early, picking up right where he left off last year. He hit 17 straight home runs to begin round one, would finish the round with 35, the most of anyone in the first round, so he would advance. Shohei Ohtani, all eyes on him. Started slowly, just 5 home runs before a timeout. Needed 22 more to tie Juan Soto, but he'd get a pep talk from Mike Trout, and then he'd go nuts. 22 home runs, 6 seconds left. He needs one more to win it. He can't. He's gassed. We go to a swing off that would wind up in a second. 3 pitches for batter. Soto hit all 3 of them out. That one was the third. It's 498 feet. So Ohtani needed to match. He needs to hit all 3 of these out. And the first one is into the ground, and that's all she wrote for that thrilling matchup. Soto wins 208 home runs in the first round, the most in Derby history. The finals would come to this. Trey Mancini, who would finish with 22 home runs in the final round, up against the defending champ, Pete Alonso. Enters bonus time needing just 6 for the win, and he would do that easily. Could not miss. He hit 6 straight out of the ballpark, and he wins for the second consecutive year. Pete Alonso is the home run derby champion, beating Mancini in the final 23-22. And being in Denver, they should do this in Denver every year. The altitude, the balls were leaping off the bats last night. Alonso ends up hitting 74, the second most by any player ever in a single derby. And while he didn't win, Shohei Ohtani ended up hitting 6 500-foot home runs, the most by a single player since distance tracking started in 2016. So good fun last night. Meanwhile, we are 2 weeks away and counting from the Green Bay Packers starting their training camp, and the huge question, will Aaron Rodgers show up? Yesterday, we got opinions from 2 legendary quarterbacks. Give a listen.
I think he's dug in right now, and there's so many things that have been said. From a management standpoint, from a fan standpoint, I think it's going to be hard for him to go back. But I'm beginning to believe more and more that Aaron Rodgers will not be a Green Bay Packer.
The fact that Aaron Rodgers might not play this year is, I can't fathom it. He's too good of a player, too fun to watch for the fans. I personally hope it's in Green Bay. My gut is he's not coming to Denver. My gut is Denver's going to have Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater be their quarterback. And at this point, you kind of know what your plan is. We can't be having a new quarterback up 3 weeks before the season.
So difference of opinions between Joe Theismann and Peyton Manning. Let's get opinions from our crew here. And let's start with the insight from Jeff Darlington. We are 2 weeks today, and he used the phrase, Aaron did, we'll know in a couple of weeks the other day. How significant do you think that was?
Significant enough because it's really the first bit of timeline that Aaron Rodgers has projected in any capacity at the golf tournament in Tahoe. He basically said, I'm going to enjoy this week, then I'm going to start working out, and then we'll figure things out in a few weeks, which, by the way, sounds like everybody on like December 27th, right before New Year's. Like, we're gonna enjoy this week, then we're going to work out. I do think that there's an important point here that we need to make. And I understand that Aaron Rodgers makes a ton of money. But every day this year, it's different than other years past. If you miss a day of training camp, you are fined $50,000. In the past, after a holdout kind of got figured out, a team would forgive those fines. The new CBA, to try to keep holdouts from happening, now keeps teams from forgiving those fines. They're unforgivable. So every day of training camp that Aaron Rodgers misses is $50,000. 10 practices, that's $500,000. I understand money is different for these athletes, but I do think that's an important distinction that we should make at this point in time.
It's interesting that you use the word unforgivable. That could be taken literally or figuratively, depending on which side of this thing you're on. Louis Riddick, let me come to you. We're 2 weeks away from knowing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that point that Jeff just made is one that really needs to be driven home and people really need to think about right here. And Aaron needs to really think about it. And that's why I've said all along, Greeny, that the Green Bay Packers, the best thing that they could do was just go ahead and make their feelings known as far as wanting him back, and then just sit and be quiet and let him think about what the financial ramifications are of you going ahead and playing this all the way out and seeing it all the way until the end. It's going to cost you a lot of money. You knew that these different markers along the way were coming up. The start of training camp, the start of the season, the trade deadline, and it gets more and more expensive. And that's why, look, right now, although you would like to maybe see Aaron go ahead and be happy and go somewhere else and take that team to a Super Bowl because it would give us a ton of content and a lot of different things to talk about in the context of the NFL, which the NFL always does, I just don't know if that is going to happen because, one, Aaron's going to look at this thing and go financially, look, yeah, I've made a lot of money. Maybe I've made, $200 million plus. But $50,000 a day that people can't forgive, yeah, you're right, that is unforgivable. I don't care how much money I've made. And quite honestly, once it gets to the regular season, it gets even more expensive. So look, man, I mean, maybe he has nowhere really to go. And as much as he wants to control his own destiny, he can't. And that's sometimes the way it goes in the NFL. This isn't the NBA. It's different. And maybe for Aaron Rodgers, we're going to wind up seeing that it's either Green Bay or nowhere.
Well, no one understands that better, Sacho, than you do based on your history with the CBA and the union and everything. But we were having a chat this morning, and you made a really interesting observation about something Tom Brady said that might actually be the key to all of this. Sam.
Well, absolutely. Well, Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. And I think I know that because I've talked to some of his friends. And better yet, don't listen to it from me. Go listen to it straight from the source. Listen to what Tom Brady had to say about the Aaron Rodgers situation. Take a listen.
An NBA owner, a self-taught guitarist, and has guest starred in both The Office and Game of Thrones.
He's unhappy with his boss and has no options. Who is Aaron Rodgers?
Ding, ding, that is correct. Well done.
It's a projection, Tom. I never said I'm unhappy with my boss.
I said it, not you.
See, that's a great friend. That's a great friend. You've got a friend who can speak up on your behalf. Aaron Rodgers hasn't said much, but his friend Tom Brady has said everything we need to hear. He's unhappy with his boss, and he has zero options. Aaron Rodgers will be back in Green Bay this year. He's not going anywhere.
So good.
Do you think he shows up the day the camp starts, Sam?
I don't. I think so even playing against Aaron Rodgers just has this brash and this bravado about him. He wants to prove a point. That's who he's always been. That's how he's always acted. And so I think he's going to hold out at least a week and a half. Yes, it's a little bit of a fine. And yes, I understand it's unforgivable. But man, give him a new contract. He'll get a little bit more money and get it back soon. So I think he's going to sit out a little bit, but he will be back in Green Bay by the time the season starts.
And you mentioned his attitude and all the rest of that. You